Ladies and gentlemen, the star of Politically Incorrect, Bill Maher.
Thank you. Let's meet our panel. He is a former member of Steely Dan and guitarist for the Doobie Brothers who advises Congress on issues of national security. I'm not kidding. Jeff Skunk Baxter. Jeff.
Hey, Bill. Thanks again.
What a resume.
Thank you, sir.
She is a lobbyist for non-profit organizations and the former chief of staff of Republican Congresswoman Heather Wilson of New Mexico. Marjorie Strayer. Marjorie.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Sir.
She won an Emmy for her work on The Practice, and her upcoming films are Legally Blonde and Happy Accidents, opening later this summer. Holland Taylor. That's right.
Hi.
Hello, lady.
Lovely.
How you doing, you two?
I
know. That's okay. I love her. He's a comedian, actor, and professional stick in the eye of conservatives everywhere. He'll be performing at Joe's Pub in New York, part of the Toyota Comedy Festival. June 8th, the most requested guest on our show, Al Franken, ladies and gentlemen. And for good reason.
There.
Okay.
Hey, bud.
All right. Now, Jeff, my resume that I read for you is not wrong, right? We know that you were part of these rock groups, and now you're advising the highest leaders of our land about our most sensitive defense
I don't know about the
system.
highest leaders, but they are the leaders of the land.
Orbach, he was pretty high, right?
No.
No, I mean, he's a congressman.
Oh, yes, I was making fun here for...
Yeah. Well, Al Gore did a lot of acid.
Yeah.
Anyway, different subject. Okay, so let's talk about this missile defense system, which is what they're proposing to spend a lot of your billions of tax dollars on, and it's called SDI. That's the official name. We used to call it Star Wars. Because it doesn't even work in the movies. I think that's the important part to mention, is that for 50 years, we're able to deter nuclear attack because we use the kind of farmer's daughter approach. If you get our daughter pregnant, we'll kill you. Now Bush is saying, we have a diaphragm that might stop all incoming sperm, except it's never worked. All the sperm seem to get in.
And it costs all the money in the world.
Right. It's a very expensive diaphragm. Why are we switching from the we'll kill you if you get our daughter pregnant approach to the magic diaphragm approach?
The problem, if we get hit by the missile, we're not going to be able to kill them, per se. So why not invest some money in to use your analogy, a diaphragm or a missile defense system?
Bill, it's real simple. The bad guys aren't afraid anymore. Yes, if somebody gets your daughter pregnant, but if it's 9,000 biker guys who don't care what you say. The problem is, I'll give you an example. When the Chinese were launching missiles into the Taiwan Strait during the 1996 presidential election in Taiwan, somebody said to the Chinese general, so what about the United States? Aren't you afraid of the United States? And he said, I don't think the United States is willing to jeopardize the welfare of Los Angeles to protect Taiwan. Obviously, we got them shaking in their boots now, you know. We got them real scared.
Should we be? For Taiwan?
Well,
we're talking about us, right?
But they were threatening Los Angeles with a nuclear missile.
Who am I to disagree with Skunk?
That's right, Al. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, I don't have the technical expertise that Skunk has. We're a country couldn't put a teacher into space.
But we did put a man on the moon, and that was a program that was criticized in the early 60s as they were developing it because it didn't work. And constantly in science, things don't work. Does that mean we just give up? And how long have we been researching a cure for cancer, and it hasn't worked yet, so we just give up?
I heard Jeff talking about this system off stage, and he's very persuasive, and he actually persuaded me to think that it could be made to work. But with all the wealth that the entire globe can provide to make a system work that basically, if you think about attack as well as defense, if we want it to work, we're basically building a system which, if it is ever used, is the end of everything.
No, that's not true.
Well,
because we're talking, and Bill's point was well taken, we're talking about 1, 2, 5 or 6 missiles. We're talking about a group of people who, I tell you, when you walk into a Cambodian village and you see stacks of skulls on both sides of that village, the people who did that don't really care what the consequences are.
See, that's wrong. That is not true. That is not true. Dictators do care very much about staying in power. There's a reason why Saddam Hussein hasn't attacked us. He doesn't want to die. And he knows if he got us pregnant, he would.
Depends. What he wants to do is what he... No. That's just not true.
It is true.
That's assuming that his number one thing is to stay in power in Iraq. What he would do is he would launch an attack against the United States, go to a hot tub with Muammar Gaddafi, and have struck the great blow against state and be the hero of the Muslim world. That's probably more important.
There's no Muslim world left after that.
I will grant that maybe this makes some sense now. I mean, we're talking $100 billion. And who knows?
We're talking
really
with more people with nuclear weapons. That's the big deal.
Will you admit this, though, that the original SDI, Reagan's SDI plan, which was to stop 20,000 incoming missiles, was insane?
I think the idea of trying to stop 20,000 missiles was definitely insane on some level, but what it did is the concept of it scared the Soviet Union so bad and bankrupted them that we won the Cold War.
But the point about this defense system is that it has to work 100% of the time.
No.
And no? No. So if a few missiles got in and blew up a few cities, that's okay?
Deterrence.
Well,
Skunk's right.
I'm going with this guy.
Deterrence. But we already have the deterrent. The deterrent is, we'll kill you.
If you launch an attack against China right now, all you're doing is helping them with their housing shortage. They don't care.
Of course they care.
Why would they threaten Los Angeles if they care? Why would they say, are you willing to give up Los Angeles?
I don't actually remember them threatening Los Angeles. When was this?
It was 1996 during the Chen Shui-bian's election in Taiwan.
Even in the Spielberg movie 1941, remember where there were Japanese bombers coming over and Dan Aykroyd had to shoot them down? That was silly. This is really silly. The Chinese are not threatening Los Angeles or really anybody. And these rogue states, they don't have the missiles. What we need is a briefcase on the subway defense. That's the nuclear weapon that might kill us.
So when you go to sleep at night, you lock both the back door and the front door, don't you? I agree. Terrorism is something that's very frightening. You have to cover all your bases.
But against a major nuclear attack, there's nothing to recover from.
But against a minor nuclear attack, you can... And what about an accidental launch?
Why are we so afraid of testing this technology and
testing it? We've spent $70 billion testing it.
Okay, and why not keep testing it and developing it?
It works.
Well, because it never worked.
No, that's not true. We've had
it require our wealth.
Look at the Patriot program. If you want to,
my worry is, Skunk, that the let's say our system's working, but let's say the North Vietnamese get a skunk. You don't want a skunk falling in the wrong hands.
No, absolutely not.
And
you mean the North Koreans, Al?
Huh?
The North Koreans are the ones threatening us, not the North Vietnamese.
Did I say the North Koreans?
Yes, you said the North Vietnamese.
Well, I meant the North Koreans. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you.
It was a slip of the tongue. I'm sorry.
I was just trying to help.
Skunk knew what I was talking about.
Do you remember Fate of the Earth by Jonathan Schell?
Say this again?
Fate of the Earth by Jonathan Schell, which is a book that came out in the 70s right after we were first creating this kind of plan, this kind of universal protection and defense and offense system that would work globally. And everybody came to the conclusion at that time, when that book was very popular, that we were investing all the wealth of the world in a system that by its very nature should not be used. That was the offensive of nuclear attack. If we have nuclear attack in any grand scale, it's the end of everything.
Yeah, he's talking about a small scale. We're talking about a small scale.
Who's going to say you can send up 3? Send us 3, we can stop that. Don't be sending us 20,000, and it's all over.
Quick story. 4 years ago, when the Norwegians launched a sounding rocket, which was a weather rocket, the Russians thought that it was a nuclear attack against the Soviet Union.
Right.
Their missiles were ready to go. We were 7 minutes away. Now, there are mistakes being made all the time. There's a lot of the nuclear missile technology is proliferating around the world. These guys are spending so much money on nuclear weapons, they're not spending money on what we call the PALs, the permissive active links, the security that it needs to secure these weapons. That's one of the reasons why your point is true. In the past, the United States and the Soviet Union trusted each other that they would be responsible with the nuclear weapons.
It would have to work 100% of the time, which no weapon has ever done. It's like, again, a diaphragm that works 90% of the time. Useless. You really want that diaphragm?
Diaphragms don't work 100% of the time. People do it because they are doing the best that they can. And they don't not use it. They use it because It's better than nothing.
That happens, we all die.
It's better than... No, we all don't die. If somebody launches 10 missiles and you get 8 of them, what you've done is you've probably saved about 30 million American lives. I got no problem with
Goodbye, San Diego and Chicago, but it was nice having you.
You and I are going to be very...
I mean, that's really what you're saying.
No.
But I got to take a break. I'm sorry, Al. We got to... Visited the White House and President Bush today, and the Dalai Lama said to the president that he could teach him to find a higher state of consciousness. And then he talked to Bush for a few minutes, and he said, you know what, let's just grab lunch. All right. You know I kid the president.
I know you kid.
I love our president.
He loves it. No one laughs harder than Bush.
Right, at himself. He's very good at self-deprecating humor. He ought to be. Anyway, his tax cut is about to get passed. He called Al Gore the perpetrator of fuzzy math during the election. Remember that? A lot of fuzzy math. But a lot of people have said that this $1.35 trillion tax cut, that's really fuzzy math, and that really, by the time it all gets said and done, it's really worth about $4 trillion, and it's going to sort of strangle the economy the way Reagan did with his tax cut that took us 15 years to dig out of. Anyone agree?
I kind of agree. You know, and also it's the shape of this. I mean, almost like 41 or 43%, depending on the House or the Senate, of the tax cut goes to the top 1%. In the second debate, Bush said this, speaking of fuzzy math. He said, and this is a quote, "A vast majority of my tax cut goes to those at the bottom." So by far, a vast majority of my tax. And the press didn't call him on it because, you know, their attitude was, he doesn't know. You know, he doesn't know.
Exactly.
But this is important. Why give... according to the tax that he proposed, Cheney and his wife would get a $2 million tax cut.
How much do they pay in taxes?
They pay 39.6%, which is what I pay,
It's a lot of money, and that's why they get the majority of the tax cut. Those who make less than $30,000 with kids get an earned income tax credit, which the Republicans increased last year.
Yeah, and which they fought tooth and nail.
Wage pay tax at all. If they want to cut it from, I don't understand.
What I'm saying is they don't pay taxes, then that is
that is so wrong.
$5,000 a year you pay tax.
No, you don't.
That's just not true.
Well, that's interesting because
what you mean, because in food stamps you make it up?
You get it back. I mean,
that's what you're saying.
You get an earned tax credit. That is not true.
More Americans pay.
If you make $5,000 a year, you do not pay taxes in this country.
35?
No, $5,000 is what Holland said.
I think if you pay $5,000.
No, this is what Holland said. So this is why I'm correcting this.
At what point are you started to be taxed then? When you pay?
I don't know the number. The point is there is an earned income tax credit. Do you know what the earned income tax credit is?
Republican fought tooth and nail.
That is not true because Republicans passed it. Republicans passed it.
Listen, I don't take that kind of language from anybody except Skunk. Skunk, you can swear at me all you like, but not from some Republican woman.
No. If you make $20,000 a year, I don't think you should pay tax.
You know, that is a very easy way to change the topic.
I remember because
earned income tax credit. You know, you just you don't want to discuss it. You don't want to discuss the fact that Republicans increased the earned income tax credit.
I believe that probably every Democrat voted for that.
I don't care. The point is it was passed by the Republicans.
Why discuss it then if you don't care what I'm saying?
Well, why don't you care? The fact that Republicans
I actually responded to what you said.
Republicans passed it.
But okay,
under Republican leadership.
Okay, but the point is why? Again, since most people pay most of their income taxes through the withholding tax, and there is no cut in the withholding tax. Why give a huge plurality of the tax cut to people who really don't need it, especially when we have kids who aren't getting educated properly, when we have seniors who can't afford their medicine, Why give that money to people who are doing great? You know, the economy...
See, you're right. We've put more money into education, and it's gotten better. Is that your premise?
No, but we have schools that... Well,
no, but you said we're not educating our kids, but we put more money into them, and it's not working.
Yeah, well, you know, like in Scarsdale...
So wait,
they put more money in education and
you're saying if we put less money into education, that would work?
Pardon?
So you're saying if we put less money in...
Al here apparently wants to pay my taxes because it doesn't bother you. But it bothers me because I don't have a house, I don't have kids, I want some of my money back.
But you know what you're going to get back?
What?
Not enough to buy a house or kids.
I didn't say I was, but the point is...
Well, there's some cheap kids around.
How about the fact that a family that has a $20,000 income has to pay tax? I think that's barely a subsistence living in a city in America today. A family with a $20,000...
It is unfortunate that you don't... It is unfortunate that you refuse to take a look at the earned income tax credit, which is money given back.
Earned income tax credit.
Why?
Cash in the pocket.
Democrats have beaten up Republicans about it, and we've done it. And you keep now you don't want to talk about it.
It's a red herring.
Right. It's so easy to fool the American people. And here's a good example. When they called it the estate tax, it had the support of a narrow majority. When they called it the inheritance tax, it was more popular. And when they called it the death tax, 3/4 supported it. Just by changing the name, 20% of Americans think they'll pay it, 2% will. Stupidity has a price.
Maybe they
got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Join us tomorrow when our guest will be comedian Super Dave Osborne, Three Sisters star Catherine Lanassa, from the New Animals Eric Burden, and policy analyst Darlene Kennedy.
A poll here in California says 3 out of 4 Californians think our state's energy crisis is very serious, and I think it's true. Blackouts are getting worse. The other night, it was so dark on one of the streets here that Robert Blake went up to the wrong parked car and almost shot Hugh Grant's hooker.
Whoa. Very bad.
Just a little joke. Come on.
Yeah. Boy.
Come on.
Boy, it's getting bad.
Right.
Oh, my God.
If I had a tie, I'd be doing what he's doing.
That's right. It is. Hey.
Tough room. Woo.
Oh, it is. It's very dark.
City.
Yeah, dark.
Eddie Murphy picked up a real woman the other night. Very dark. Dark on the street, I'm telling you. Speaking of a real woman, Janet Reno. You've heard the rumor? Not that one, but she is thinking about running for the governorship of Florida, where she is from. She used to be the prosecutor there. I say great. This was always my favorite person in the Clinton administration. I used to say, the only one with real balls in that whole administration. And I just say, go, Janet, go.
It brings West Wing to mind.
Brings what?
It brings West Wing to mind.
Why?
Because I thought Ms. Reno was not well. I thought she was publicly known as being unwell.
She has MS on West Wing. Yeah, but she does have Parkinson's, but it does not affect the cognitive process. The Pope has it. Michael J. Fox has it. It affects your hand. She already addressed, she said, yeah, I'll shake.
Yeah.
She said, my hand shakes.
Actually, people admire her for that. I mean, she's someone with a disability and she's a tough person who makes decisions, and if you may agree with them or you may not agree with them, but I think she's to be admired. Now, there are parts of Miami, the Cuban community, where she'd have better luck in Waco running. But I think she'd be a strong candidate.
Right, and I think in both Waco and in the Elian Gonzalez situation, she was right, and she acted with guts and not according to the political winds.
And she took responsibility.
She's strong.
Yes, she
Immediately, too.
She is strong, and she believes in her convictions and she goes for it, and she doesn't care what anybody says. We need more like her.
But taking a look at the Elian case, whether you agree or disagree with her, wouldn't you contend that is kind of a bad place to run for governor after...
Well, it's her home state.
I know, which doesn't matter.
Also,
you can't run for a state you're not from in this... Oh, wait.
Yes, you can.
Cuban Americans in South Florida are Republican by and large anyway.
Right.
And Hispanics, Gore won among Hispanics because non-Cuban American Hispanics tend to be Democrat and like Gore, and I think they'd like Reno.
Well, one thing about Janet Reno, I agree with Al. which I'm doing way too much tonight, Al. This is great. But I don't
skunk.
We're like this. But I agree with that she makes tough decisions. My problem with her is that she makes tough decisions that may not be correct. I think her support of some of the things that the Clinton administration did was not right. And I think that as Attorney General, she had a duty to be a little bit more balanced in her outlook.
Such as on the campaign finance investigation.
That thing really, that was the one thing that really...
The FBI and her top prosecutors wanted to investigate.
Yeah, but